I'm actually slightly early today. History and politics. Wow. What do we have today? What do you have today? Try to give everybody a little time to get in the room. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Every Monday through Thursday at 9 p.m., we go live and discuss current political happenings, and we discuss it in a historical framework. Um, why do we do that? We do that to illustrate to the public how many of these historical things are systems replaying themselves. That's where there's a video that we have on the channel that says that change is not the same as progress. Um, Things can change over time, but if the end result is still the haves have and the poor stay poor, things haven't progressed. They just changed. Um, if you stab somebody in the back with a 7-inch knife, famous saying by Malcolm X, and you pull it out 3 inches, that's not progress. To pull it out completely is not progress. There is no progress until that wound has started to heal. There's an argument that said it's not progress at all because the knife shouldn't have been there in the first place. When people don't know history, it's easy. If you don't know a trick that I played on you, or the way that I beat you in a game, and you're never aware of what it was that happens where I can trick you and beat you, or a tell that you give. It works for me. You don't know it, so I just keep doing it. I'm always going to win. You're always going to lose. Well, that's kind of what's happening with United States history. If you don't know the economic systems that are in place, the political systems that are in place, the strategies that are in place to keep the haves having and the have nots not having, the haves will always have and the have nots will always not have. That is the only logic associated with why the Republican Party or the Trump Party or MAGA is so vehemently against Americans knowing history. Now, what has been a popular notion or popular area of analysis is the fact that black people don't know their history. Black people we're taught our history from slavery forward, meaning that was our beginning in this country as slaves. Now, there were black people here when Christopher Columbus came into the Caribbean. The first thing he said was, I see black people on the coast. He didn't say red people, he didn't say white people, he said black people. So black people on all 7 continents back from Mansa Musa, which I believe was 150 years before Christopher Columbus, and probably before that, because there is a natural wind that takes you from Western Africa to the Western Hemisphere. So that's where the hurricanes come every year. That's why they come every year. So if you're in the right time of year, you are naturally going to get taken to the Western Hemisphere. So it is highly likely that Africans, being the first civilization on Earth, which Dr. Leakey and all of those anthropologists have established that that is where humans originated from, and that humans did not, or humanoids did not leave the African continent until the Homo sapiens sapien variety of human beings. So the Homo sapien, Cro-Magnon, and all of those other bipeds only existed on the African continent. But we know of African travel because of the Moors. We know of African travel because of the Malians. We know of African travel because of the pyramids on all seven continents. We know um, of African travel because of anthropological findings that have been unearthed that has a synergy to the findings on the African continent, technology, knowledge, information dealing with the solar system, all of those different things. So, blacks aren't taught about the history of the people that were taken from Africa or the people that were here prior to the Europeans. So that gives us a base of knowledge only in reference to white supremacy. Well, what is less analyzed is the fact that white people don't know American history. And white people are duped, the masses of white people, poor whites, working class whites, the labor force, are duped into remaining poor and believing in a system of people who oppress them financially, oppress them educationally, oppress them socially. They have bought into the elite leadership telling them, you don't want to know history because that history is bad. We want to teach you a good history. I noticed as soon as Trump became president the first time, he was talking about law and order politics. Now, as a historian, I absolutely knew that that was the Southern strategy from Nixon. But the MAGA people were going, yeah, law and order. And I'm going, that's the Goldwater, and that's the Reagan strategy. That's the Richard Nixon strategy. That's Lee Atwater. What? How do they not know that he is saying word for word what happened as recent as 1970, I believe, was Nixon? How do white Americans not know law and order politics? How do they not know the war on drugs, convict leasing? Convict leasing happened immediately after slavery in 1865 for black people, and it happened for white people in 1867. Why is it when countries, governments, large political entities start locking people up and looking for people to lock up, we don't know the history of what comes after that? Because think about it. If I know what happened, I know this happened before, because it's history, I can read why it happened and what the outcome was. If we go back to the early 80s, when one of the MAGA people that followed the channel, told me 85 is the time that America was great, that they want to make America great again. That was when they started locking people up. And they didn't say anything when they first started locking people up about putting them to work. But then as the war on drugs went on, as the drugs went on, then all of a sudden the labor stuff started kicking in. There are people, MAGA people, that are friends of the channel. I use the term friends loosely. I hope they're friends. That are not aware that that's how the war on drugs started. So why are you saying that this is convict leasing if um, we, they're not doing any labor? They're not doing any labor yet. They weren't doing labor in the early 80s. How do we not know the situation? Tariffs have never worked. The New Deal, Reagan. And, how many times have we found that tariffs ultimately make the issue worse? This is basic United States history. So I find it funny that at the time when history is most important, when they are bringing back, um, they're rejecting discrimination laws. They're repealing all of the anti-discrimination legislation. They're inserting tariffs. They are shipping convicts. They have this big immigration issue. I'm over 50 years old. Nobody cared about the southern border until the projections of immigration said that Latino people would overpopulate the country beyond whites. By some projected point, Latinos would be the dominant group in number if immigration maintained the speed it maintained. This was not an issue in the 80s. This was not an issue in the 90s. When the numbers came up in 2000, which most of the people who are in MAGA and all of that, they were alive at that time. Why is it when whiteness is threatened, all of a sudden all of these narratives come about that we got to protect this border? Notice, we're not talking about the Canadian border. Why is that? Why is it that we don't know enough of immediate history? I'm not talking about the civil rights movement. I'm talking 2000. And it was well into the 2000s before this was an issue. But when white people were beginning to be outnumbered, it goes back to the Civil War. Who has the numbered votes to control the government? Why did Haiti lose its revolution? Because it was a 10-to-1 ratio of black people and white people. They outnumbered them. So what white communities started doing, especially in the southern portion of the Western Hemisphere, is keeping the census. How many black folks compared to how many white folks? And we do the census now. So when white people saw the projection that we can be outnumbered, not that anybody has a history of doing something to white people. In our history, white people do stuff to people. You don't have any wars where white people were attacked. It's always white people attacking Native Americans. It was always white people going to get Africans and keeping them under bondage, under violence, them attacking Mexicans to take land from them. So there is no history in this country. Now, white people do stuff to each other all the time. But in this country, they're not under attack. So this is not fear. This is a fear of, hi, Deanna, how you doing? This is a fear of finances. This is a fear of fiscal control. And because whites are not educated in history, they don't see it. So we actually have the leadership telling the poor whites, you don't need to know about history. You just want to hear our version of history. You want to hear good things about America. You don't want to hear about a racist history. And they go, no, we don't want to hear about a racist history. That way, if you don't know how I have continually kept you poor, you will never know it. The person who was one of the main funders of public education was John D. Rockefeller. John D. Rockefeller said, "We do not want an informed nation. We want a nation of workers." He wanted to give enough education for people to come to work for them to keep them rich. He didn't want them to be thinkers. And that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing a press to keep the white, poor, working class populace unaware of the systems and the strategies that have kept them poor over time. Again, it's no different if you and I are playing a game and it's something I know about the game that you're not aware of, and I keep using it and keep winning. If you never find out what it was that I was doing, which if you look at the history of our games, you would be like, wait a minute, every time this happens, that's what he does. That's how he keeps winning. Why else would they put this referendum for American history? It's not that white people just hate black people so much. That's really not what it is. Racist white people, racism is a system to maintain economics. When the Europeans came here, they didn't have a problem with the Native Americans. They wanted what the Native Americans had. So to justify them taking what they had, they said, oh, they're savages. So they made race. Race is the son of racism, not the father. Okay, I'm going to come up with some reason out of this economic purpose. They didn't have a problem with the African people. They needed somebody to do labor. So they went and got the African people and put them to work. But the logic I could put it behind is race. Okay. During the Japanese internment camps, same thing with the Chinese and the railroads. It was a logic that was created out of a financial system. That's what race is. Racism is a system of economic preservation to keep everybody else away from the economic resources and keep it to a small group. And even once you get in whites, then they separate by class. They're keeping the wealth to a very few. That's racism. Then once you get past racism, then you go to classism. Then you go to classism, then you go to ethnicity. Well, you're Italian, you're Polish, you're Russian, so it's constantly dicing this up to get down to the 1% that really control everything. And the way that you predict future behavior is by analyzing past behavior. Why is America putting forth this big referendum for white people not to know their history? And I know how little they know is because that's my job to teach it. So I see what's coming into our classroom from the high schools. Even from, if the people who didn't take U.S. History 1 with me have a completely different experience in American history too. So now look at this history referendum not as a racist, MAGA, hateful thing against black people. This is a point of control for working class white people. They don't want them to know the systems that are in place to keep poor white people in masses working for the betterment of the rich whites. Again, Like, share, subscribe. Monday through Thursday, we do history and politics on Sunday. We do class in session. I just posted a class in session with my son, who is a doctoral candidate, and he's telling his experience as going through the higher learning process as a young person. He also has autism, and he talks about that as a factor or non-factor. So I thought that he's an amazing guy. Anything, I mean, he's my baby, so I think everything he does is amazing. But he's definitely an inspiring young person. So if you have time, check that out. Again, we'll be on tomorrow, and we're going to check the legislation and see what's new in the world of MAGA. And again, I am dead serious. My MAGA friends, and I know I don't probably have too many, but I don't have any Democratic friends either. I don't have any liberal friends either. I'm just as likely to have one or the other. MAGA people, I know I've been giving you the blues. Reach out to me. I would love to have. I'd love to have you on a live. I would love to have you on a video. Please come on. This way you can represent. If you feel I am misrepresenting the MAGA ideology, if you don't think that the referendum is actually keeping history away from the masses of whites, please clarify it for me. I look forward to hearing from you again. I'll see everybody tomorrow, 9.